people tried to go there to stand in solidarity with these great movers, members of the democracy movement. They were subjected to some of the most inhuman things that you will ever have to countenance and go through. I hear people calling themselves Kalenjin warriors on the floor of this house. Some of the things that we heard from Boniface Mwangi, I would want to know why a Kalenjin warrior would wish any of that punishment and mistreatment on any human being, Kalenjin warrior or not. Speaker, it disgusts us. And one of the things that is the most disgusting for me as Senator Sifuna and SG of ODM is that some of these characters have been running around wearing ODM colors, calling themselves founder members of ODM. Mr. Speaker, they say birds of a feather flock together. Those are not our colors. Those are not our people. Those are not our values. The ODM party, Honorable Speaker, is a party that is known for justice. We are the manufacturers. We are the birthers of this constitution. There is no way, Honorable Speaker, we will associate with characters who run around saying people should be subjected to inhuman and degrading treatment.
Senator Sifuna,
so,
there's a point
Speaker,
of order. There's a point of order. What's your point of order, Cherargei?
Mr. Speaker, I raise understanding on the 101.1. I've heard Senator Sifuna mention a number of names and the judicial conducts like Tundu Lissu, Heche, that come from Tanzania. It's on record. Here, Mr. Speaker, when you read understanding 101.1, it says neither the personal conduct of the president nor the conduct of the speaker or of any judge nor judicial conduct of any other person performing judicial functions nor any other conduct of head of state or government or the representative of Kenya or any friendly country or the conduct of the holder of office whose removal from such is dependent upon decision of the Senate shall be referred adversely except upon a specific substantive motion of which at least 3 days notice has been given. The reading, the upshot, is it in order for Senator Sifuna to refer to other matters? We are aware that Tundu Lissu is undergoing judicial process in Tanzania. It is on record. But is it in order for him to refer to such matters in a friendly neighboring country without a substantive motion, which we don't have a problem? If he brings it, it would be in order. Is it in order, Mr. Speaker? Can he withdraw and confine himself within the standing orders, Mr. Speaker, of Standing Order 120 of the standing orders? You should listen.
Honorable Speaker, I wish the Honorable Cherargei listens to people making submissions on this floor. And if he can't listen, at least exercise his ability to read, even that standing order that he has read. Clearly, Honorable Speaker, although I know the names of the judicial officers who are involved in the cases in Tanzania, I have not mentioned them. Although I know the people who are responsible for torture abduction of Tanzanians and Kenyans in Tanzania, I have not mentioned them. I am speaking about my friends. If you don't have any friends across the border or anywhere away from Nandi County, that's your own problem. I have not mentioned anybody in that authority. Mr. Speaker, therefore, allow me to continue uninterrupted. The point that I was making. Speaker, we need to create a country that resembles that which we wanted when we passed this constitution. And the point that I was making as SG of ODM, still, Honorable Speaker, wearing that color is not what makes you a good person. That color represents something. We know what we stand for. When somebody sees ODM, they know what it means. So just donning a cap, if you don a cap and you're the ones denying people the right of habeas corpus, our founder, our party leader, the late Raila Amolo Odinga, was for 9 years without trial. His family suffered. His kids missed him, his wife. They were tortured and, even emotional. So when you wear that color, you should know what it represents. You don't just go there, put it on, then you say, oh, I'm a founder member, and start shouting tuta. That's not who we are. Honorable Speaker, the constitution of ODM is molded so closely to the constitution of this country because we are a rights party. So, Speaker, let me tell you this. We want a country where human rights, human dignity is respected. The reports that have been referenced here, including reports from IMLU, they tell us that almost 20 young people have died in police custody, all in prison cells or remand facilities between January and now. Speaker, that is not a statistics that we have made up. It is a serious issue. Almost 60 people have died because of extrajudicial killings. And these proposals are good, Honorable Speaker, because we have seen even in the streets sometimes when young people are trying to capture the police breaking the law, they themselves who are trying to record what is going on are subjected to violence. So let it be that we get this footage from our own equipment that has been installed by the taxpayer. But if we do not develop a culture of respect for the rule of law as stated in the preamble of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, there's nothing we are doing. So, Speaker, we have to have a conversations. We have spoken here during the motion on the State of the Nation about even reviewing of police standing orders and their operational, what are they called? Yes, there's SOPs, standard operating procedures. Honorable Speaker, because again, I will not tire to remind the country that I am the author of the MOU signed between Raila Odinga and President Ruto. Honorable Speaker, the review of the police standing orders, because I made sure that because I'm a senator, I incorporated the resolutions of this House during the debate on the State of the Nation in that MOU. I had some person running around who was not even in the room when the MOU was being prepared, telling us that it is at 50% implementation. He doesn't know. He hasn't read it, I can confirm, because I know him, he's my friend. We will tell you when that thing has been implemented, because it is not something to hide. It is like this debate we were having in the afternoon. Whether SHA is working or not is not something somebody will tell you. You will hear from the people on the ground. When you go there, Honorable Speaker, in Garissa, you will say, yes, mambo ya harambe hapa imeisha. Honorable Speaker, when that MOU is implemented, nobody will need to shout from the rooftop about its implementation. We will see compensation of the victims of police brutality. They will tell you the money is in their accounts. They will tell you that the SOPs, the standard operating procedures of the police were brought to this House. They have been amended, and now we have a people-friendly police force or service. Honorable Speaker, they will tell you that devolution is working. Those are the things that we incorporated in that. And we want to urge Kenyans, Honorable Speaker, not to fall into this trap of encouraging a clawback of all the gains we've had. Honorable Speaker, the things that are happening in our neighboring countries, they used to happen here. They used to happen here. You remember the fight we had about constitution or reconstitution of the IEBC. You hear the stories from our neighbors where they are still in the era where the president just determines who's running the election. You know, when we hear those things, Honorable Speaker, we are transported back to 1992, over 30 years ago. When you hear somebody say, you can arrest these people, and he uses words like Finya Wow, you sound like a Kanu youth winger from 1991. You're giving me nightmares, Honorable Speaker. I remember the advent of multi-party. We were told, Honorable Speaker, if you flash the two-finger salute, they will cut one so that it remains the one that was representing Kanu. That is the same language we are hearing from people in this House, and they call themselves founder members of ODM. Shindwe kabisa. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Consolata Nobwire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. My name is Consolata Nabwire Wakwabubi. I would like to contribute towards this motion about installing CCTV cameras in police stations and police cells and police desks. This one is a very essential tool to enhance safety and also deter criminal activities, as well as supporting evidence-based investigations. In the recent past, the installation of CCTVs, even in our homes, was deemed to be a luxury, but it is no longer a luxury, and especially to enhance safety and security in some of our public institutions, there is need for us to enhance and embrace surveillance infrastructure. And for this case in point, I want to be very particular to the police stations, police cells, the police desks, and even at a later point, maybe I would like to request the mover to put something else regarding the high-risk areas, that can also be used to enhance community policing as a safety measure. You look at these CCTVs, and we find out that they are both for protection of both the law enforcement officers as well as the public, because sometimes some evidence is hidden or is deleted, and therefore we cannot be able to get that ample evidence to move a case or maybe to interrogate a case. There are so many things that happen in the police cells. For example, we have custodial deaths, or we have alleged brutality, and we even have GBV cases that are meted upon some of the victims in the police cells, in the police stations, and even in the police, at the police desks. So it will be ideal for us to advocate for this CCTV coverage, even in rural areas that are close to police stations or police cells. It is also important for us to note that there is need to have a clear maintenance or monitoring frameworks towards these CCTVs. Let's have a clear framework spelling out who are to monitor the cameras, how data is stored, and maybe the timelines for maintaining and repairing faulty equipment of some of these CCTV cameras. So let's also have strong data protection guidelines to safeguard any data that we have. I want to stop there and conclude by saying that I support the motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by congratulating the owner of this motion, Senator Nyamu. I think this is a very progressive motion to have been brought by a specially elected member in the name of Senator Nyamu. And Mr. Speaker, you are aware that the government, through the CS Interior, Murukomen, also made a public statement that we would like all police stations to have CCTV cameras for the purpose of monitoring what happens in those police stations. Mr. Speaker, this debate around having CCTV in all our police stations was ignited by the torture that has been happening in our police station, with particular focus on Mr. Ojwang, who is alleged to have been victimized, tortured in the police cells. So this is going to be a very important motion, if passed by this House, to ensure that we completely eliminate what we call custodial torture, that torturing of prisoners in police cells, in police station. So I want to support it. But Mr. Speaker, just echoing my colleagues who have raised concern about the matter of torture in this country and even externally. Mr. Speaker, the issue of torture of Kenyans in Tanzania and Uganda, it is not an issue that we can laugh about, especially if we are leaders in this country. It is not an issue that we can celebrate. It is not an issue that we can try and play politics with. So this weekend, we were very disappointed that one of us, who happens to be my friend, and who brings very good motion to this House, that he is celebrating torture, Mr. Speaker, by encouraging the Ugandan president, who we know how he came to power, Mr. Speaker, by encouraging Tanzanian president, who has even been accused by other leaders in Africa. Other leaders in Africa.
Senator Cherargei, what's your point of order?
I stand Article 123. These standing orders is a creation of the Constitution. I want to appeal that colleagues should read and internalize. Standing Order 101, Part 1, talks about the conduct. When you hear my brother, Senator Otsotsi, who I hope he will be the governor of Iga, alluding to how Museveni rose to power, on how Samia Suluhu is running Tanzania, Mr. Speaker is discussing the conduct of the president of a friendly nation which is contravening our own standing orders. You cannot call out somebody for the wrong and then you are committing the wrong yourself. Mr. Speaker, can you withdraw or within 3 days submit to your office a substantive motion to discuss the conduct of President Museveni or President Samia Suluhu, or withdraw and apologize to the House for contravening our own standing order, specifically Standing Order 101 Part 1, Mr. Speaker? Is it in order for, and you know, it is sad, Mr. Speaker, that the person making statement is the deputy party leader of ODM.
Senator, what's your point of order, Senator Sifuna?
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 121, it is actually disorderly conduct for people to stand up all the time during debate to raise false points of order. Please encourage Senator Cherargei to read the whole provision that he's referring to. It talks about mentioning someone adversely. Now, adversely means in bad light. I don't know how many euphemisms. I wish I spoke his local dialect. I translate for him. The senator for Viga has not mentioned anybody adversely. He has just said, if you consider the manner in which they rose to power. What is adverse with that? What is adverse with that? And they have not mentioned anybody's name. Can Senator Cherargei allow debate to flow instead of raising these frivolous points of order? And Mr. Speaker, one final request. I think as a colloquium of speakers, we must now determine how it is possible that there's only one person who knows when people are out of order. That the entire afternoon, it is just Sifuna saying point of order and being granted. Maybe there should be a limit to the number of times that you can rise on points of order. You are not the only senator in this House. We have 67 of us. How is it that only one person can see when people are out of order?
Mr. Speaker, I think I want to agree with
Senator Otsotsi, having listened to the points of orders, and for the first time, Senator Sifuna would want to disagree with you, because Senator Otsotsi did mention the heads of state of Uganda and the heads of state of he said, or he imputed in the manner in which they were sworn into office. So, Senator Otsotsi, I would ask you to withdraw that and proceed to make your submissions.
Mr. Speaker, just a correction. The manner in which he was sworn into office.
In the manner in which they came into power.
I said, in my own words, I said, if you consider the manner in which he came to power, if you consider, Mr. Speaker, there is nothing adverse about this. There's nothing adverse about this. It is a fact that President Museveni came to power through a military takeover. It is a fact.
And Senator and President of Tanzania?
I never said more about the Tanzanian president.
But you mentioned her. You mentioned this, the head of Tanzania.
But Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
in the same sentence that you made reference to Uganda, you made reference to Tanzania as well.
Mr.
Majority
Speaker.
Leader, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Otsotsi is making his case worse. Because that's not the only way you get to power in Uganda. He needs to know that subsequently, after that event which he refers to in 1986, the year I was born, The president of Uganda has gone ahead to win 7 other elections. Mr. Speaker, how can 8 instances where you become president, one particular incident, the first one, becomes your only reference point? I mean, to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Speaker, I feel that Senator Osotsi may not initially have made an adverse comment, but as he continues now to perpetuate his point, he's actually now treading towards that adverse mentioning.
What's your point of order, Senator Eddy? Give him the mic.
Mr. Speaker, do I go become minority?
Use that one. There's a next mic up next to you. Here, Sifuna inafanya. Wacha nione dispatch. Basi useme kitu ya maana kwa dispatch.
Mr. Speaker, I still want to insist that Senator Cherargei is raising on frivolous point of order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm on a point of order. This again is still frivolous, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the standing order for which my friend Senator Osotsi is being accused of, 101, the word is that standing order does not prohibit you from mentioning any name. It prohibits you from imputing improper motive or mentioning a name adversely. Mentioning a name is not a bad thing. And Mr. Speaker, if you see what the majority has just talked about, he is considering the circumstances. And that is what Senator Osotsi invited us to think. And if you consider, the English word, if you consider, then you end up mentioning the name. I don't see what the problem is with that, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that you should rule out Senator Cherargei out of order, not Senator Osotsi, because he's not mentioning these names adversely. He's giving you English word if theory that we used in mathematics classes, Mr. Speaker. He has not implied any improper motive on these individuals. In any case, the majority leader would be out of order for considering those circumstances, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order, Senator Cherargei?
Mr. Speaker, we need...
Senator Sifuna, there is no limitation over how many times you can stand on a point of order. So allow the senator his right.
Mr. Speaker, if my memory serves me right, you have made a ruling towards the matter that is on standing 101. Would it be in order, because it looks like we are discussing your ruling, which is unheard of, would it be in order for me to invite you to standing order 122, gross disorderly conduct? A senator commits an act of gross disorderly conduct if the senator defies a ruling or a direction of the speaker or the chairperson of committee. Would it be order? Because the senator of Vihiga has refused to follow your ruling and obey, is it in order to invite that he should be thrown out for the rest of the sitting, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Cherargei, there is no need to guide the speaker or the chair. I am following closely, and Senator Osotsi has not refused. He is not out of order or disorderly out of order. He was just explaining his submission. Senator Osotsi, please withdraw and then conclude your submission.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I really wanted to have a flowing contribution, but I'm being disrupted every now and then. But I would want to make Senator Cherargei happy, because I know where he's speaking from and where he wants us to go. So for his sake, I will withdraw. But the truth remains that our Kenyans have been tortured in Tanzania, and our Kenyans have been tortured in Uganda, Mr. Speaker. That is the truth. That even the person he's trying to protect, he himself said in the public space that Kenyans were tortured in Uganda. So I will withdraw that bit to make him happy, so that I can continue with my debate. Mr. Speaker, this issue of custodial torture, it is something that must be dealt with. And one way of dealing with it's having CCTV in public spaces within the police station. But this must be exercised with some caution, Mr. Speaker. I want to support what one member said, that this must be weighed against the data protection rights and principles, so that we don't have a scenario where the rights of prisoners or the rights of even police officers who work there are infringed upon. In some jurisdiction, Mr. Speaker, they put CCTV in police station, but they don't put them in some private places in the police station. For example, I know in the UK, they don't put CCTV in places like bathrooms or even custodial places where prisoners sleep. So I think this motion should be amended so that to say that it should comply with the data protection principles and guidelines, and of course, our data protection law. Mr. Speaker, we have also heard that some of these CCTVs have been interfered with. And you heard in the case of Ojwang, where it was alleged that CCTV footage and images has been interfered with. So I think, even as we talk about having CCTV in police station, we need also to insist that the law in processing this information must be complied with, particularly the law on computer misuse and cybercrime act, which is very clear that if you infringe on data or you manipulate data, then it becomes a criminal offense. That will be important in this case, so that to protect data that is being captured by those CCTVs. Mr. Speaker, the other bit, if I go back to the Data Protection Act, is that police stations must now be designated as data controllers and processors for the purpose of ensuring that the data they capture is compliant with the Data Protection Act, particularly Section 8 of that Act, which says that data processors and controllers must promote self-regulations among themselves. I don't know how the police stations will be able to do this, given the conditions of our police station and given the conduct of some police officers. So what I'm proposing is that maybe this bill, this motion, can be amended so that we incorporate in aspects of relevant law, that is the Data Protection Act and the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act. This is a good motion, but I think maybe we need to consider maybe converting this motion into a legislation so that it is very clear on what offenses can be enforced on people who violate this installation of CCTV. Still on the installation of CCTV, Mr. Speaker, I think the crime rate in Nairobi has gone up, Mr. Speaker, and a few years back, we had a very big project in this city to put CCTV all over. The project was being undertaken by the Kenyan government and Safaricom. I think at some point, this House, particularly the Committee of Security, should consider this matter and tell this House what exactly happened. That the country spent a lot of money, billions of money, and the system is not working. What happened, Mr. Speaker? These are some of the things, Mr. Speaker, that are going to be a major factor, even as we think about having CCTV in all police stations. We are talking about 1,209 police stations. This is huge amount of data, which requires investment in ICT infrastructure, having servers, having good connectivity, and having routine and continuous maintenance of this infrastructure, and management of this infrastructure. So this is not a small project. This is a huge project, and I hope this project is not going to be like the Safaricom Kenya government CCTV project for Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support, and I want to encourage that, moving forward, Mr. Speaker, such important debates.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Eddie Okech.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I'll actually make very quick comments that are very direct. Mr. Speaker, what we have seen in our police cells is disheartening, dehumanizing, and most importantly, still the dignity of a system of justice that starts with police cells or police custody overly, Mr. Speaker, because the mantra is always that anybody who gets to these police cells, if, for instance, you have not been taken to court, Mr. Speaker, you are innocent until proven guilty, Mr. Speaker. And we have seen people who end up enduring some dehumanizing acts in the hands of police or police custody, Mr. Speaker, to the extent that even if they have not been taken to court, Mr. Speaker, they have been dehumanized. And Mr. Speaker, this is not just in the extent of sometimes killing or brutal killing in the hands of the police, but also sometimes it's also in terms of just being mishandled by inmates in those police cells, Mr. Speaker. So this is one of those motions, Mr. Speaker, that I would say straightforward that it is timely, it is something that is needed. In fact, we are behind, Mr. Speaker, if you compare with some advanced countries that have made strides in terms of how police cells are handled, Mr. Speaker, or generally police institutions are handled, Mr. Speaker. We need this as urgent as possible, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to put this in the context of what I would call human progress and humanity discourse, Mr. Speaker, what our Constitution chooses to call human rights, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, there is no freedom when freedom is limited to a country like Kenya, and you have these wonderful laws that we're putting in place. We are thinking about revamping our police cells. We are thinking about accountability by our police systems. We are thinking about responsibility by those who handle people who find themselves in police cells or any authority, Mr. Speaker. When any of us can imagine that this can only happen in Kenya, and when you're without Kenya, you should not be able to enjoy those rights, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have seen people argue today on the context of the comments that were made by a member of this House in what's happening in the region, and sometimes it's very easy, Mr. Speaker, to say that what does not concern us is what affects our neighbors next door, Mr. Speaker. I want to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that I know of people, and I'm willing to table that report, Mr. Speaker. I know of Kenyans who have suffered in the hands of police in our neighboring countries. That's one. I also know of Kenyans who have been killed and maimed in the hands of police institutions in the region, Mr. Speaker. And when you talk about the concept of a sub-regional or regional cooperation that we think about in the East African region, Mr. Speaker, it is not an issue of a laughing matter, Mr. Speaker. Like what a member of this House went and saying that what is happening in Uganda does not concern us, and what is happening in Tanzania does not concern us, or even the region generally, Mr. Speaker. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, before 1977, Mr. Speaker, this region had desired to have an integrated system that can be able to allow for fulfillment of human dignity. And those dignities, Mr. Speaker, were not only limited to economic merit of individuals. If you read what the corporation that established the treaty that collapsed in 1977, Mr. Speaker, that corporation desired to look at economic merit, political merit, and social merit of our people in the region, Mr. Speaker. So it is in bad faith, Mr. Speaker, if a member of this House can go out there and say that if there is torture in our neighborhoods of individuals who are civil society, Mr. Speaker, or otherwise, any members of our society who have been caught in Tanzania or in Uganda, if there is any torture, then that torture is okay because we are not sub judice to any issues that are happening in those regions, Mr. Speaker. It is very disheartening. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you remember the collapse of the East African community in 1977, Mr. Speaker, what happened was there were three issues that were raised. One was lack of a strong participation of the private sector at that time. And then, Mr. Speaker, there was lack of strong political will. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, was lack of strong civil society in the corporation's activities, Mr. Speaker. This is what is cited in the 1999 treaty that revamped the treaty that we had in the East African, a journey that started from 1905, Mr. Speaker. If you look at the treaties that we looked at from 1905 in this region for the East African Cooperation, Mr. Speaker, those treaties desired to bring about an integrated system that included the justice system, Mr. Speaker, to the extent that you have seen that members of this society, including one activist and also a leader in this country, Mr. Speaker, that I'm like, Honorable Martha Karua, when we lost an election at some point and we could not get justice in the Supreme Court, she desired to go to the East African Court in Tanzania, Mr. Speaker. And if you read the treaty that is established in 1999 that revised this treaty, Mr. Speaker, it allows for free movement of goods, services, capital, and labor in the community, Mr. Speaker. So we are not so separate from Tanzania, we are not so separate from Uganda, so that any injustice in Tanzania, any injustice in Uganda is injustice in Kenya. And any injustice in Kenya is injustice to the people of Uganda and Tanzania, Mr. Speaker. We are not different because we have got a legal entity that guides the three countries, the 1999 treaty, Mr. Speaker. And I feel disheartened, Mr. Speaker, when we are talking in this House, a member of this House who had the audacity, Mr. Speaker, of going out there and praising and encouraging atrocities against citizens of this region, Mr. Speaker, by authorities in Tanzania and by authorities in Uganda, praising that and watering it as something that should be celebrated, Mr. Speaker, is unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. In fact, I want to wish the members of this House the courage, Mr. Speaker, that this should be the first time a member of this House is brought with a substantive motion on the issue of injustice that we have just seen happening in Uganda, Mr. Speaker, and the injustice we saw happening in Tanzania, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if a Kenyan has been allowed by Treaty of 1999 to be in Tanzania to do business, and then they are found in a situation where we saw in the elections that have just ended in Tanzania, Mr. Speaker, they are found in a situation whereby there is war, there is fights, there is all these atrocities, and then they die, Mr. Speaker, in Tanzania. Should we celebrate, Mr. Speaker? Must we celebrate something like that, Mr. Speaker? Injustice, the mantra, Mr. Speaker, is always that. The injustice that you face in your country, and you might think that it's made to your country, is an injustice to other countries. Injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, Mr. Speaker. And it doesn't happen up until when a member of this House finds themselves in Arusha, where you have gone for a committee, Mr. Speaker, and then you are found in the frenzy of these activities that are happening in these other countries without anybody to fight for you. Then you find yourself between life and death situation, Mr. Speaker. Then you will appreciate the essence of the trees that we are building in this country. So we must never accept, Mr. Speaker. In fact, when we pass this kind of motion, Mr. Speaker, we must push that it becomes adopted in the region. For instance, Mr. Speaker, why is the government of Kenya paying for members of Yala money to be able to legislate in Yala if we are not one community, Mr. Speaker? We are paying because we are tied by the hip on legislative principles, on all integration manners in this region, Mr. Speaker, so that some of the things that are good that we are doing in this country, Mr. Speaker, can also go to our neighbors, Mr. Speaker. And I remember, Mr. Speaker, last year, when the country was burning here, Mr. Speaker, we were called the name Jirani, and our children were bastardized and told to be having bad manners. And this discussion, Mr. Speaker, was nowhere other than the Parliament of Tanzania, Mr. Speaker. So was it okay that we were being discussed in terms of character, in terms of values, in a parliament discussion in Tanzania, and we cannot discuss the same problem that we have seen in those regions, Mr. Speaker, that affect us, when our own member in this House, Mr. Speaker, has come to laud them? Mr. Speaker, what the Senator of Nandi said about what is happening in Uganda and the behavior of regime in Uganda and Tanzania is a shame and must be called as such, and as a House, we should not tolerate it, Mr. Speaker. And in the spirit of broad-based, Mr. Speaker, where one of the principles of broad-based may so rest in peace, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, Mr. Speaker, fought for the freedoms that we are enjoying in this country. I doubt in Raila's heart that that freedom was limited to being freedom that can only be enjoyed within Kenya, Mr. Speaker. It is freedom for humanity that must be enjoyed within and without the borders of Kenya. For all human race, Mr. Speaker, for all humanity, Mr. Speaker, in the continent, we must start being one African people. That the pain that is in Mali, the pain that is in South Africa, the pain that is in Cote d'Ivoire must affect us as a people, Mr. Speaker, because we are one African people, we are one humanity, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I condemn what my brother Senator Cherargei did pronounce in the weekend about what's happening in Uganda, Mr. Speaker, and about our colleagues and our people and the citizens of this country who are detained in Uganda, Mr. Speaker. Detention is something that you will never want to see. And I like this bill, this motion, Mr. Speaker, because it is a one step forward to making sure that this kind of dubious things that happens behind bars when people are in custody, Mr. Speaker, don't ever happen, Mr. Speaker. The pain we felt as young people when Albert Ojwang died in a police cell, Mr. Speaker, is a pain that we never want to see any other young person face in this country, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, this is a very important motion, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that we can support it, and I hope that even our colleagues in the lower house, Mr. Speaker, will support this kind of motion to make sure that we can monitor, we can be able to see what is happening in real time, and even post an event in a police cell, Mr. Speaker, and protect the dignity of lives in our country. And therefore, I support, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that we as a House will pass this with the haste that it requires to make it a reality in our country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Okiya Omtata.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. And guided by the ruling you made, I will not refer to the decision that was made by the land judge. And I'm happy that the contributions have not referred to that decision. So we take it that we are basically contributing on this motion in terms of our understanding of the situation in this country as it stands today. Mr. Speaker, I fully agree that the motion contributes to transparency and accountability and the possibility of other things. But we must realize that we cannot fix a cultural problem using technology. Technology can only enhance an attitude. We have had problems even with the elections, with the Kim's kids and whatever we have had in conclusive elections. So our attitude is what needs to be done, changed. Our culture is what we need to address, and technology cannot fix that. We just heard that the cameras were turned off in the Ojwang case. There have been no consequences to that. It is not a question of cameras. I think it's a question of attitude. And I think what we must look at maybe is the autonomy of the police. How autonomous is our police force? How independent is the police force? And of course, I also want to point out the dangers that Senator Osotsi has raised in terms of privacy issues. We also have got issues whereby this beautiful thing can easily become a white elephant, where we dump a lot of money into it, as happened with the police surveillance cameras, and hardly get any value out of it. I would also want to look at the work environment of the police officer. I've seen police officers walking in torn shoes, tattered uniforms, or weather-beaten uniforms. I assume that person is coming from a home where things are not okay. We have seen police stations. There's one in Mathare, totally unfit for human habitation. It's a police station. So, somebody wearing a body cam in such a situation, I wonder what he will do with that cam. Let us look at the holistic environment within which the police operate, and this just be one of the interventions that we put there, maybe at the tail end, but most important, we must change the culture. I've been detained in police cells 29 times. And all those times, you'll find that the first thing you get to know is where the toilet is in the police cells, because the stench is horrible from most police cells. So, how do you think of the people who work in those environments? Go to Pangani police station here and see the conditions under which the officers are serving. It's not a small police station. It's a major police station. So I think this motion, timely as it is, needs to be expanded to address the entire question of policing in this country. We enter the culture of disregarding the police, the culture of misusing the police, the culture of not being professional in the way they work, the culture of not giving police the equipment and the tools to work with. You'll find the police officers go on the beat, they're armed with a G3 rifle. If such a police officer is threatened by a suspect who's going maybe to arrest or to arraign, he's going to use devastating force to try and protect himself. We may need equipment like stun guns that can immobilize a hostile suspect and allow the police to arrest him safely. So I personally think that we need to look at the whole question of policing in a holistic manner, and also look at the legal framework within which the police are operating. You know very well that in 2014, we amended, when I say we, I mean Parliament, amended the Police Service Act, the National Police Service Act, to remove the requirement for the competitive recruitment of the Inspector General of Police, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, the two Deputy Inspectors General of Police, and the Director of Criminal Investigations. It also amended to remove the security of tenure that these people enjoyed. So at the end of the day, the police are put under the command of whoever has the capacity to appoint the IG, to appoint the deputy IGs, and to appoint the DCI. And we have seen that from that 2014, the appointments of these people have not been on merit. They have been based on a standard that has escaped the comprehension of some of us who pursue detail. It's a mysterious standard. So, in a situation like that, where the police are basically working at the pleasure of the president, the police command is working at the pleasure of the president, that police force can hardly be independent. It's not independent. it can hardly be professional. So I think we need to look at the police issues in slightly more serious manner than we do. Right now, if you go to my county, we have got an AP police station in Busia town, which is right on the border. The other side of the compound opens into Uganda. How safe are those policemen? If you go to Teso Central, which was created simply recently, which was carved out of Teso South, the Teso South group moved out with all the equipment. The officer who sits in Amukura in Teso Central, the police, the AP police, have nothing to use. And then they are respect to police. Those kind of conditions do not create an environment where policing can be considered to be democratic policing or the policing that is required in a democratic republic like Kenya. So it's my plea to this House that as we look at this motion, which is a good motion, maybe we consider expanding it to cover the totality of the welfare of the police. So that once you have taken care of the individual who is supposed to police us, then you can expect them to keep those standards that we have placed upon them. But if we violate the rights of the police to housing, the rights of the police to fair salaries, the rights of police to other things that we seek to enjoy, the rights to education, to health, working conditions. You find policemen have got no vehicles, or if they have a vehicle, they've got no fuel. They're buying uniforms. They're not supplied with uniforms. When they come on operations, we're having the riots we have, the demonstrations we had in this country recently. I used to look at the policemen, and there were no rations. Even water, a person is doing very serious work of protecting society. He has to go and buy water. There's no backup. What happens to police rations? What happens to these rations that go for operations? When you look at the budgets, there's a lot of money for operations, there's a lot of money for whatever. Where does that money go? And especially the lower ranks of the police. They go out, they work very hard, they sleep rough. Then they are sometimes paid some small allowances, which again they are seen as steal. So I think we need to address the question of policing in Kenya in a more comprehensive and exhaustive manner, beyond what this motion is proposing, and maybe include some of the issues that are in this motion, so that, having expanded this motion, we can comprehensively and conclusively say that we have addressed the question of policing. Otherwise, we shall be like people putting balm on a septic wound. These cameras might turn out to just be a decoration. If they can be turned off without consequences, as it happened in Ojwang's case, we need a legal framework whereby there are consequences for turning off a body cam or a vehicle camera or things, a dash cam or something like that. We must have a legal framework for addressing those kind of excesses. So I would request that, as I support this motion, I would request that maybe the draft of the motion considers expanding it beyond a presentation of a cultural problem as one that can be fixed with technology, to go and address the underlying problems that are bringing policing into disrepute in this country. It's very disheartening to see a police officer walking in torn shoes. It's very sad. The constable on the beat is the symbol of the republic. That's why it's a police officer who wears the crown on their head. The emblem is worn, they wear on their body, the security officers. The military people, the police, they wear it on their body. On the president, the emblem is placed on the wall. Even Madam Speaker, the emblem for you is on the wall up there, it's not on your body. It's only a police officer It's only a security officer, military officer, who wear those things because security is a major ingredient of a republic. And so if it's a pillar of the republic, how are we treating our security people? How are we treating our security? We have seen in Boni, wherever they are being killed, they are dying. How did we get accountability? Why people would be in a war zone in a light-skinned vehicle that goes over a landmine and they all die? I have a motion in this house, a petition in this house, where more than 400 police officers who were injured in the course of duty have been assessed and cleared for compensation, have for years not been paid. What is happening? When you come to the question of promotion within the ranks and files, those who don't know anybody never get promoted. Promotions have become a preserve of relatives, friends, and the connected. The force is dying, the force is crying, and it is this house which has the tools and the capacity to save the Kenya Police Service, the administration of police, and in general the entire National Police Service. We are also seeing the incessant fights between the Inspector General of Police and the Commissioner, the Commission, the National Police Service Commission. These are among other things that are again undermining policing in this country. We have now seen two court cases have been filed. Why is it not possible for this house to look into these things and make, if the law is having a lacuna, this house should fix the lacuna. We have got Professor Janda here, very seasoned professor of law. They could help us to fix those kind of lacunas so that we can have the intention of the framers of the Constitution, who came up with the National Police Service to oversight the human resource needs of the police, to do so. We also need to look at the question of a police union. The police in this country must be allowed to form a labor union like policemen across the world have, so that their needs can also be addressed in a formal and structured manner. The idea that the police cannot form a union that they can go to when they are in distress is one of the issues that is contributing to the mental illness many policemen are facing today, the suicides, the murders, the desertions, and the lethargy of the work. I don't know, almost today an average policeman in Kenya is a drunkard. Some are even obese. They're supposed to be soldiers, they're obese. Total disorganization in the force. So we need to bring discipline back, but we need to do it comprehensively and look at the culture of policing in this country. And then once we get the police properly...
Senator Majority, what is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, I was really enjoying the submissions by my friend Senator Umtata and learning a thing or two until he uttered the words that the average policeman is a drunkard. Mr. Speaker, I think that's an unfair judgment on our officers. While there is an alcohol problem, which even none other than the Cabinet Secretary for Interior has confirmed, because I've seen occasionally some of them completely inebriated and unable to carry out the responsibility, I think to pass judgment on nearly half the members of our institution is not a fair assessment. Maybe he would have said there's an alcohol problem amongst quite a good number of officers which needs to be addressed, but I felt that his use of the word on average, that's a bit too strong, Senator Umtata, and I don't think that's a statement of fact, which I want to request if you can kindly omit it and replace it with a more suitable judgment on our officers.
Senator Umtata, unless you have any scientific evidence that the average police person in Kenya is a drunkard, withdraw that. Withdraw that statement.
The word average is not scientific itself. So, but I think the way Majority has done it, he has put it in there. I think we should replace my words with what he has just said. I agree fully with
It
the-
is you to replace your words, not we. Don't bring us into your...
Yeah, so I request the Hansard to adopt I can't get, if I try to repeat and mess it up. He put it so well. He's a poet.
So you are
I speak in
withdrawing
broken-
and adopting the words of the majority.
I'm withdrawing and adopting the words of the majority leader, the way he put it.
Proceed.
Yeah, so I'm saying that the culture around policing needs to be addressed holistically. This motion is important, but it is trying to put lipstick on a pig, as they put it.
Can you give the senator 1 minute to finalize his lipstick statement?
It does not holistically address the problem. So I think that we ask the move of this motion to look at it, and I've had so many good comments that have come from the members, to see if we can expand this motion to be an entry point for this House to try and address the problem of policing in this country and see how we can assist them, and even ensure that the big budgets that we allocate to the police end up doing the work that the police are supposed to do. That's what I will pray, because when you go to, everywhere you go, you find they are saying they have no fuel, they have nothing, they are stuck. But then we allocate a lot of money to the police. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the motion with amendments as proposed.
Senator Professor Ojenda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to contribute to the motion that has been filed before this House by Senator Nyamu. And Mr. Speaker, to start with, I want to state that the National Police Service is created by Article 243 of the Constitution, and the service defines the mode of hiring of the IG, the 2 deputy IGs, and other officers. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be gainsaid that this country reels from a deficit of police in the service, and I am aware, Mr. Speaker, that perhaps it is time, and I hope that it will resolve, that the intention to hire 10,000 police officers in addition to those serving would go a long way in ensuring that the police service delivers to the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore clear that the motion that has been brought before the House would only be useful if a comprehensive reform to the police service is undertaken as per the recommendations of the Maraga Task Force. That task force, Mr. Speaker, puts into place recommendations that touch on the conditions of service for the police. It deals with the issues of welfare and deals with several areas that require improvement. And I agree, Mr. Speaker, as Mr. Senator Omtata stated this afternoon, that this motion is a motion in futility if it is not implemented with the incorporation of the various reforms that the Maraga Task Force has recommended. Because you cannot, Mr. Speaker, purport to introduce CCTV monitoring equipment in police stations without a framework when we know that the operation of those CCTVs, Madam Speaker, depend on the very officers whose welfare ought to be addressed by the proposals in the Maraga Task Force. And therefore, that must be done first. Madam Speaker, the second point that I wish to point to is that in terms of human rights violations, and I must commend the service, what we have in the service now, IG Kanja, the 2 deputies that assist him in his work, have demonstrated, have revamped the workings of the police force. They have revamped the workings, Madam Speaker, to the extent that we see an improvement in the manner that the police do their work. And that can only be improved, Madam Speaker, if we adopt every piece of recommendation in the Maraga Task Force. But let me move and state, Madam Speaker, that the motion also has failed to address what the provisions of Sections 2 and Section 18 and 19 of the Data Protection Act. The introduction of some of those CCTV images, Madam Speaker, or the installations would be a violation to private rights. So that this motion must incorporate, Madam Speaker, those provisions that preserve rights of individuals. We know, Madam Speaker, and we have addressed several issues on human rights. Human rights are universal. They are rights, Madam Speaker, that are not only erga omnes, but also jus cogens. And I don't need to educate the majority leader on jus cogens. It just means that they are so trite, they must be respected by every nation. And it is, Madam Speaker, irrelevant that an individual does not belong to a state. And that is why when Senator Eddy was commenting on the Treaty for Establishment of the East African Community in 1999, specifically Article 126, that enjoins countries in East Africa to cooperate towards a joint mechanism that would ensure a federation, a monetary union, and finally a federation for East Africa, the 5 stages of our union in East Africa. That treaty, Madam Speaker, is under threat of violation when we see certain violations in the region. It cannot therefore be gainsaid, Madam Speaker, that the violations of human rights that occur in our brother or sister states must be viewed with concern, because we must move towards implementing the treaty. And that is why we must see a working East African Legislative Assembly. I understand, Madam Speaker, that the Assembly is not as functional as it ought to be, and that should be a concern of this House, because the Assembly, some of the members of the Assembly have not received their salaries for several months, Madam Speaker, because some of the countries in East Africa do not contribute their share. For the avoidance of doubt, Madam Speaker, Kenya has consistently contributed her share to the ESC. And Madam Speaker, as we deal with human rights violations in the region, we must be alive to the fact that these issues touch all of us and concern all of us, and we must work a framework of a healthy East Africa and East African states that obey human rights. For the motion, Madam Speaker, let me say this. This motion must be amended to make sense, because you cannot, as you say, Madam Speaker, provide protection to a hungry crowd. The police need better service. The police need a better working environment to be able to deliver to the people of this country. We need more policemen. And aside the litigation that is going on, Madam Speaker, we need policemen to be employed so that these policemen, Madam Speaker, can serve the people of this country, because we are moving to a period where we need even services of these police persons, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to my powers under Article 45(2), I wish to direct that we move on to order number 23. Thank you. Honorable Senators, the mover is not around to reply, so we defer the replying to the motion. And as earlier indicated, pursuant to 45(2), I wish to call on order number 23. Thank you.
Oh, I thought.
Order number 23, the Public Finance Management Amendment number 4 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 45 of 2024, second reading.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to move that the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2024, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, this PFM Amendment Bill number 45 of 2024 is a particularly interesting one. This is one of the many bills, Madam Speaker, I have hoped that we'd consider over time But like I have learned, Madam Speaker, everyone's jobs ends up being no one's job. Many times we say these things, then we leave it, and we assume that somebody will think for us. I cannot remember the number of times while commenting on BPS that almost every senator has made this request that this amendment is about, that the House be granted sufficient time to consider the budget policy statement, that it is not tenable, the 14 days that we are granted within which to listen to the public, make our decisions as committee, compile it, and bring it to the House. In fact, if possible, Madam Speaker, it will make more sense, other than have it compiled by the budget committee as is a tradition, to have actually the individual committees present their findings individually. You have the chair for ICT come here and give their perspective and their view on the proposed bill. Then you have the chair for health come and explain to us why National Treasury still want to continue hanging on to stipend for community health promoters as opposed to releasing that money to counties so that governors can pay, Madam Speaker, and so on and so forth. There are many things which I feel if we had sufficient time to consider the BPS, then the House will be better armed, actually, to respond to the call of interrogating our budget. This bill was published, actually, in the Kenya Gazette Supplement number 190 of 2024, last year, November. It's actually taken almost a year plus in the National Assembly. The principal object of this bill, of course, is to amend Act 412A, which is to extend the time within which Parliament considers and makes recommendation to the BPS, to extend the time within which the CS for Finance complies with the debt management provisions, and to put in place a framework for the implementation of accrual accounting in government, Madam Speaker. The extension of time within which Parliament considers and makes recommendations to the BPS from 14 days to 21 days will allow Parliament sufficient time to carry out public participation, debate, and make cogent recommendations on vital budget document. I need not emphasize, my colleagues, many times you've had each of us say how 14 days is such a short period. Of course, we understand that we work in a very tight fiscal cycle of only 12 months, which many times, Madam Speaker, when we resume at the beginning of the next session, around February of next year, Madam Speaker, it's a fast business that awaits us. And within that time, we have a short time to consider this, send it back to National Treasury, they put it together, then they send the proposed budget to the Assembly, who have to carry out public participation and all those things, especially remembering that in a budget like the one for next year, actually, it's the last budget before the elections, and therefore, Madam Speaker, has a lot of interest. Further to that, Madam Speaker, Clause 2 of this bill proposes to amend Section 25(7) of the PFM Act to provide that Parliament shall not later than 21 days after the BPS is submitted to Parliament table and discuss a report containing its recommendation and pass a resolution to adopt it with or without amendments. The extended time for consideration of statement by Parliament from 14 to 21 days, and to amend Section 25(9) of the Act to provide the National Treasury shall publish and publicize the BPS not later than 22 days after the submission of the statement to Parliament. These extend time for publishing and publication to 21 days. I have explained that. Section 50 of this Act also imposes certain obligations relating to debt management to the Cabinet Secretary for Finance. One, these include, under Section 52, that borrowing by the national government shall not exceed 55% of the gross domestic product in present value terms under Section 52C, the amendment that we did here at the beginning of this term, Madam Speaker. The debt threshold set out in 52 came into force in 2023. The bill, therefore, to provide a different date for coming into force of this provision. Clause 3 of the bill proposes to delete Section 52C and submit the new session that provide the Cabinet Secretary to ensure that borrowing by the national government complies with the threshold under Section 52A, Madam Speaker. We had a long debate about this, and I believe that the Budget and Finance Committee of this House will actually lead us into making a more reasoned decision on this particular proposal during the Committee of the Whole stage. The Clause 4, Madam Speaker, is to amend Section 194(1) to provide that the Accounting Standards Board shall provide a framework for the implementation of accrual accounting in government, and further the board shall prescribe risk management framework. The bill further proposes to amend 194 by inserting a new subsection 6 to provide for transition period to 3 years to accrual system of accounting in government. There are many people who've been calling for this because it basically means, Madam Speaker, that we shall be spending on reality of what we have as opposed to the current system where we believe and hope that there's some amount that we'll collect, and therefore hoping has gotten us to where we are today, where close to 70% of our collections, Madam Speaker, end up paying debt. Therefore, this is a simple amendment, but with very consequential findings, which I hope that colleagues can find time to debate, share their thoughts about it. I'll be particularly interested by the findings of the Budget and Finance Committee on this matter, so that we know whether indeed they have considered the requests that have been made here, Madam Speaker, and lead us. With those many remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to move and request Senator Professor Tom Ojienda to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I second the motion for the proposed amendments. Madam Speaker, it is clear that timelines are important to the extent, Madam Speaker, that budget policy statements must be debated within a sufficient time, and the proposal to amend the sections in question, Section 25 and other sections, is an important section. Madam Speaker, these amendments will improve the substance of business that this House will undertake, and in the light of the proposed timelines and timeframes as per the proposals, Madam Speaker, I second.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Public Finance Management Amendment number 4 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 45 of 2024 be now read a second time. Senator Omtata.
My lady, Madam Speaker, the Public Finance Management Act is one of the key pieces of legislation in this country. It operationalizes Chapter 12 of the Constitution on public finance. It has many good things, it has many bad things. And I think the budget policy statement, which is the broad, the broad outline of the budget that is made annually, which annually is the broad guideline for the annual budgets, is a very, very important process. And I agree with the mover of the motion and the seconder that this is a very, very important amendment that needs to be done. We need to be given adequate time to interrogate and audit the proposals for the budget, and if possible, be able to ferret out cases of budgeted corruption, which may be padded in the budget, intended distortions of equitable sharing, and stuff like that. So the amendment is extremely important, and I would urge my colleagues in this House to support that amendment, that we be given adequate time to scrutinize the budget proposals. 14 days are inadequate, and as the mover said, the majority leader, within those 14 days, we are supposed to have the committee meet and look at it, maybe, and as it's a parliamentary tradition, subjected to public participation, and then come back, subjected to debate in this House, and then vote on it. that kind of restriction reduces this House to a rubber stamp, whereby we have to decide between having a bad budget or having no budget at all. And that leads to a situation whereby sometimes things that are passed in this House, that when you encounter them later on, you say, how come this thing went through the House unnoticed? So it's a very, very important proposal that we bring that out. In moving the motion, the Honorable Majority Leader made a reference to the budget ceiling in the Public Finance Management Act. Although he mentioned it like something that is good, to me it is something that's unconstitutional. When you look at Article 220 of the Constitution, especially Clause 1, B and C, they address the question of borrowing. And they require that borrowing must be clearly indicated in the budget. With the proposals of how it is going to be repaid, the loans are going to be repaid. When you come to a budget ceiling that says that you are going to borrow 55% of the GDP, it violates that provision, that in every budget, Parliament must set the limits of that borrowing, and it must justify whether there's capacity to repay those loans or not. That's what the Constitution requires. A budget statement, a debt ceiling gives the executive a blank check. And we have seen what that has done in this country. The debt, since we came up with the idea of debt ceiling, our borrowing has gone haywire. Just for historical purposes, the concept of a debt ceiling came into vogue in the USA during the First World War. In the USA, the structure was that, Congress had full control of money. Unlike us here, who have full control nothing, you saw Congress the other day they have shut down government for 40 days because they could not agree how the money was going to be used. Money is controlled by the House. Today, I think it's when the senators voted and some crossed over, and the 60 threshold was met. So there might be a minimum opening of the House in the UK, in the US. But that as it may be, they still have the debt ceiling issue. And the debt ceiling since 2017, when it was introduced during the First World War, to allow the American executive procure, then come to tell Parliament how it has been procuring to fight that war, has remained in the US. And today, the US has got one of the biggest debts in the world. It's the most indebted country in the world. The only lack they have is that they print the dollar. And when they print the dollar, they cause inflation outside because we also use the dollar. So they're covered that way. But the debt ceiling resulted in Congress losing control over borrowing by the American government. And it has led to that problem. In our circumstances, we also have the other problem whereby, realistically speaking, debts are paid from taxes. We don't pay debt from GDP. In a country like Kenya, where I think 10 or less % of the population owns 90% of the economy, the GDP is a very misleading figure when you come to debt. Because when you go to taxation, that 10% that owns 9% of the economy will only pay 30% of their income or something like that to the debt. And so the GDP will not reflect in taxes. Then we shall be borrowing a debt that we cannot finance, that we cannot pay back. So we need to go back, and that amendment should be expanded to deal with the amendment to remove the debt ceiling as a guiding threshold for borrowing. And we go back to Article 220, Clause 1, B and C of the Constitution, which prescribes that in every budget, we must address the question of public debt. In every budget, so that we can be able to determine whether we have capacity to pay what we have borrowed or not. And if you are borrowing, how do we intend to finance that loan? So that when the loan is being borrowed, we must be able to look through long term and see how is this loan going to be repaid? What activities are going to repay this loan? Number two, that long-term look will also give us a chance to look at Article 201 of the Constitution, Section C, which requires that the benefits of borrowing must be spread between the current generations and the future generations. So this amendment, and it's also good that we need more time to look at the budget proposals so that we can also be able to interrogate the budget to determine whether it addresses that particular requirement that the future generations must be taken care of in every budget that we make. So, Madam Speaker, this is a very, very important amendment, which I support, which I plead that this House considers favorably. And as we go along, we must also look at other aspects of the Public Finance Management Act. In mind, I have Section 11 of the Public Finance Management Act, which establishes the of the national government. We have 48 governments. When you look at Article 251, Clause A, Madam Speaker, it requires Parliament to establish, by an act of Parliament, to establish the National Treasury. If you look at the design of our Constitution, we have 48 governments. This House, as one of its core businesses, is to protect devolution. When the Treasury becomes part of the national government, devolution suffers. And that's why you have found that the counties are unable to get money on time. The law requires that they get money by the 15th of every month. We hardly see that happening in our counties because the national government, which has hijacked the Treasury, using Section 11, only gives counties money after it has had its fill. You have heard even the person of His Excellency, the President, say that under my government I've ensured that statement should never be made by anybody. We need an independent treasury that can serve the 48 governments based on what Parliament has passed, not on what the President desires. And Section 11, Madam Speaker, whereas Article which purports to operationalize Article 251, Clause A, Clause 1, states, if I may paraphrase it, states something like the National Treasury comprises the Minister for Finance, the Permanent Secretary for Finance, and the departments. Now, Madam Speaker, as you know, the Minister for Finance is an appointee of the President. The PS for Finance is an appointee of the President. They don't enjoy security of tenure. So basically what we have done through that public finance, Section 11 of the Public Finance Management Act, is to make the President the treasurer of the Republic of Kenya. And we have seen that in practical terms, parliamentarians make a budget. They pass a budget. We are going to have to do budget policy statement. It will go through the whatever motions. It ends up in the National Assembly. It's passed. It goes into for the President, he signs it into law. It becomes an appropriation act. For all practical purposes, it is usually shelved. The budget that is then implemented is a budget that is not approved by Parliament. You will see that whenever the president goes to a public function, even a funeral, you will find the MPs from the area standing up and telling him they need a bridge, they need a road, they need whatever. All those things are not in the budget they passed. And the president will stand up and grant them. Because we have subverted the constitution to a point whereby, whereas we are required to manage this country using the budget, it has become a formality. What runs the country is what the president determines. Right now, we got a loan of 13 billion, I read in the papers, from the World Bank, for Nyota Yetu. Nyota Yetu is nowhere in the budget. It's nowhere in any. It's tying us to a big loan of 13 billion. Because the president wanted it to be done, it's going to be done. You have seen a lot of loans being signed whenever the president travels. These loans are not in the budget. They have not been approved by Parliament. They get signed and are binding the people of Kenya. But why is all that happening? You again go to the Public Finance Management Act. What has it done? Whereas the Constitution requires only Parliament to approve borrowing and what have you, it has vested power in the Cabinet Secretary for the Treasury to be able to borrow loans. And so we end up with a very big, huge debt stock of odious debt in this country. The majority leader talked of 70% of the money we collect going to pay debts, which means 70 shillings out of every 100 shillings that the Kenya Revenue Authority collects goes to pay loans. The correct figure is worse than that. When I did a study on that odious debt last year, by 30th November, it was 82 shillings out of every 100 shillings that the Treasury collects that goes to service debt. The government is left virtually with nothing. The other day, I read in the East African, I've not verified it, I read in the East African, the figure had grown to 92 shillings, 92%, 92 shillings of every 100 shillings that the KRA collects is going to service debt. Then we have reached a situation whereby we are borrowing money to pay debt when it's very clear in the law that we cannot borrow money to pay debt. The most known example was the one that happened the other day in February 2024. We borrowed more than 2 billion shillings to pay the Eurobond debts. Yet the law, Article 214 of the Constitution, makes debts a direct charge on the consolidated fund. So you begin wondering, why is it that we are spending all that money, debt is supposed to be a direct charge on the consolidated fund, how come then that we are still borrowing to pay debt? You find you have got this thing called domestic borrowing. Very clear in the Public Finance Management Act that you can only borrow domestically to sustain cash flows, which must be repaid within the year, short term. You must borrow. Any other borrowing must be through Parliament. You have seen infrastructure bonds being floated by government. They have not been debated in Parliament. You have seen treasury bonds being sold in this country, binding the country for many years. It's not been approved by Parliament. You have got these rollovers that you see in the statement of actual revenue and net exchequer issues that the Treasury publishes every 21 days after the end of the month. When you read those statements, you find you have even a rollover that has been running from 1979. You ask yourself, what is happening with the public finance management in this country? And so the law that says Public Finance Management Act is a very, very important act in terms of managing the economy of this country, in terms of achieving, I saw the president say the other day, something I've always been saying, and I was happy he said it, that we can make Kenya a first world country right now. But you cannot make Kenya a first world country right now unless we go that way of fiscal discipline. If we go borrowing and throwing money around, throwing good money to bad problems, we are not going to achieve that. So this motion is extremely important for this country. Let us get ample time to interrogate, audit, and ferret out any bad things from our budgets so that we can be able to come out to find a budget that can run this country. But I would request the movers to consider even amending those articles, Article 57, B, C, and D, which allows money borrowed by the national government to be banked offshore and not in the consolidated fund, as required by the Constitution in Article 206. We must look at Section 11 of the Public Finance Management Act and also repeal it and go and create an act of parliament that creates the ministry, and that creates the treasury, not as a ministry of the national government, but as an independent institution governed by professionals and oversighted by parliament, whereby the control of money is then taken away from the president and vested in parliament. Where money sits with the presidency or with the executive and the power of the purse are together, you end up with what you call the imperial presidency, or an emperor, who is a distributor of goods and services. And you can see our president, wherever he goes, he carries a bag of goodies, which are not in the budget. But that's how that's what the law has done. So we should come back and put the power of the purse back in the House, so that even the president cannot have money to give away. If he wants to do something, he must propose it to Parliament through the budget. And if I want something done in my area, it should not depend on my proximity to the president. And you know you cannot approach power standing straight, you have to bow. It must depend on my relationship with fellow MPs, whom I can lobby and negotiate, and we put it in the budget, and then it becomes law, and then it's implemented. So with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support the motion with the proposed amendments. Thank you.
I don't see another request for speaking, so the mover may reply.
Mr. Speaker, sorry, apologies. Madam Speaker, I want to thank Senator Umtata and Senator Professor Tom Ojenda for their thoughts on this very interesting topic. This is about the future of our country. Madam Speaker, when the public debt debate came to Parliament in 2018 or 2019, I moved on the floor of this House to oppose it vehemently, because I knew that I'm doing so for the sake of the future generations of this country, who will bear a great burden beyond which the call of any parent or adult who is in a position of responsibility should pass over to the next generation. Unfortunately, Parliament speaks through the votes of the majority, and they had their way that day. But I lived to be happy and see that day, Madam Speaker, when under tremendous pressure, it was confirmed to the country the level of debt exposure that this country was left in after the 10 years of the Jubilee administration. In fact, Madam Speaker, you know, I heard the president, former president, the other day say that he spent the first 2.5 years of his presidency finishing the projects of President Kibaki. President Uhuru should know that we are in the third year and we can't finish his problems. We are still trying to sort it, which is the greatest gift he gave the country, which is skyrocketed public debt that we are trying to solve up to this date, Madam Speaker. And it's unfortunate because we don't appear to yet have grasped this problem and appreciate that this is a threat even to our national security. Part of the dissatisfaction that you see with many members of the public today is on account of an economy that is cash-starved. And how does an economy become cash-starved, Madam Speaker? It becomes cash-starved because the biggest consumer of goods and services, which is the government, doesn't spend. And the reason they don't spend is because they have nothing to spend. Because everything that we collect, Madam Speaker, unfortunately, never leaves the proximity of Harambee Avenue. It's collected at Times Towers, heads 50 meters to the National Treasury, and off it goes to pay debt of people who have managed their resources better than us over the years. And it's really a problem which, Madam Speaker, if we do not address with the finality that it deserves, we shall live to regret in days coming by. I must appreciate, Madam Speaker, that at the beginning of 2022, the World Bank actually had predicted that there were 6 African nations that were likely to default on their debt and come down under a debt strain. 5 of those economies, unfortunately, actually defaulted on their debt, and to date, their currency has never recovered. I think you have Ethiopia, Ghana, and I can't recall the other 3, Madam Speaker. Kenya is the only one that survived, but we are not yet out of the woods, and we shouldn't feel proud about the situation that we ourselves in. Despite the tight fiscal space that we continue to work in today, the threat for defaulting still exists, Madam Speaker. And we must always bear that in mind every time we carry on our responsibilities. And it's time we have a prudent or an adult conversation in this country about how we manage the resources. 2.4 trillion shillings, Senator Omtata, is not small money. Forget about the debt that you're talking about that you're paying. We asked the other week here, who are these people that we are paying 80 billion Kenya shillings every month in form of compensation to public workers? 80 billion is not small money. It is actually nearly a third of the funds or a fifth of the funds that we devolve to counties. Yet we spend it on less than 1 million people. Yet, if it is a fifth, it means it takes care of nearly a fifth of the counties that are in this country. Nearly 10 counties, Madam Speaker, that has populations of millions of people. But those resources are being consumed by less than 1 million citizens that live off the public wage bill. And it's something that we must confront, because it is the biggest strain on our public resources over and above repayment of our debt. And I like the conversation which the minister began, but I have not seen him advance a decision, difficult as it may be. You know the problem in this country, that's why I disagreed with Senator Cherargei when he brought here a motion the other day saying, oh, we need to increase the stipend for, I don't know, interns. And I said, what is wrong with us? Haven't we realized how much of the overstrain we are putting on the national purse by insisting that everybody who comes to demonstrate outside Parliament here must be absorbed on permanent and pensionable basis? In fact, Madam Speaker, that is something that we need to propose to the country and have a conversation with them on the realities of our economic situation and why it is not possible to continue employing at the rate at which we are doing. Despite the fact that there are people who retire, others either on account of age or illness or due to natural situations like death, Madam Speaker, it still is not enough a measure to give us the comfort to employ the numbers that I see being employed on a daily basis. Members of Budget and Finance Committee must lead us as the House as we look in this law to think through and see whether what is being proposed to us makes sense, particularly on the issue of debt anchor. Is it not possible, and I had asked this question earlier, that if you want to have a different commencement date, no problem, but at least fix it in law. How much fiscal deficit is allowed year on year, so that it is known for a fact that if you ever try to do a budget beyond a certain fiscal deficit, then it is considered an illegal budget. That's the only way we can assure the country that we are working on a strict fiscal framework. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, if we just pass on the date and say that the commencement for this maybe will be 2028 or I don't know, 2029, it's fine. But what is the assurance that the Treasury will comply, that our colleagues in the National Assembly will observe, yet we know what is happening? Senator Omtata, I'm not sure whether what you're proposing will work, because the National Assembly has been a big player and active participant in this mess that we find ourselves in. CDF, which began at a paltry 50, 60 million hardly 10 years ago, today is over 200 million Kenya shillings. And you can see the appetite, the way it is increasing. All these projects that you see being lined up in the budget, some of them beyond the proposal of Treasury, are because our colleagues in the National Assembly have figured how to rally their colleagues and put in a project here and another one there without the final consideration that we don't have the resources to live large like they're encouraging us to do. It is unfortunate, Madam Speaker, that even as we speak this, we are fully aware that unless we put a stop by law on this issue of debt increase, and the only way you can do it is through the means that I have proposed, that even if you give them additional time, then guide, show, work out scientifically year on year. If the fiscal deficit for last year was 4.9, then reduce it to 4.5 in the subsequent financial year. Adequately in the next financial year, bring it down to 4 until we get to that point. Otherwise, it will get still to that 2028 and another amendment will come. This time proposing that, oh, maybe we now try and achieve a particular target. Because of the effects of politics. The unfortunate thing in all this is politics. At the end of the day, when the head of state and members of parliament and even us senators, we visit our constituents, there's a demand for a road here, a demand for a bridge on the other part, and we are all pushing back that resource basket. Yet development is not evenly balanced. And this is a challenge that we continue to face up to this date, Madam Speaker, where there are regions that have had their share, but because of the convenient politics of the day, others continue to struggle. We were with you in Busia. You saw the kind of traffic mess that you find yourself in on the road from Kisumu to Busia, an international highway.
Order, Senator Edio. Okay, we can't hear the speaker properly.
I was talking about the road from Kisumu to Busia, for example. Yet, we see billions being appropriated each year to sections of the country which, to the best of my knowledge, have actually don't, okay, I'm not sure whether don't deserve, Madam Speaker. For them, it is not a priority as much as it is, for example, for people of that section of the country. You can see the number of accidents. I think even Senator Mtata previously, you had an accident on that road. Yeah, he survived actually narrowly. Because it's a thin road, despite the fact that you have tankers, you have trailers that are moving goods to Uganda. You know, prioritization of all these things. Yet, we cannot do it because of the influence of politics and patronage of our national resources. So, Senator Mtata, I'm not sure whether leaving it in the hands of politicians like you and me will still solve this situation, despite the fact you can move it from the executive and bring it to parliament and make it even worse. We must learn fiscal discipline by agreeing on a framework. Look at what has happened to Americans. They've shut down their government for almost 40 days because they couldn't agree on what is the prioritization of expenditure. We must get to that place where when we want to live beyond our means, we tell each other that this is the resource pool that is available, agree on where to spend it. Nothing more, nothing less. Anything else that we are discussing here, to the best of my knowledge, Madam Speaker, is waste of precious time. I do not want to take long, Madam Speaker, because I can see that we are actually out of time. But I think this is a topic that we need to have a better conversation. And Senator Mtata, we need to think more deeply and do something in the House beyond just what you are saying, because unfortunately not many people follow this kind of conversations. Thank you, Senator Ojienda, for your contributions as well. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to reply. I request, in accordance with Standing Order number 66.3, that we defer the putting of a question. I thank you.
It is so deferred. Next order.
Order number 24, the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 46 of 2023, second reading.
The order is deferred because the mover is not here. Next order.
Order number 25, the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 49 of 2023, second reading.
Also deferred. Next order.
Order number 26, the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 1 of 2024, second reading.
Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 12th November 2025 at 9:30 a.m.